A predator walked the earth for millions of years without fear. No rivals. No challengers. No species capable of stopping it. While ecosystems around it evolved, collapsed, and reshaped themselves, this creature remained at the top, unchallenged, dominant, and absolute. This was not a dinosaur. Not a mammal as we understand them today. It was something far more ancient. Its name is Inostrancevia, and its story takes us back to a time long before the age of dinosaurs ended, back to the late Permian period, roughly 260 to 252 million years ago. This was a world fundamentally different from anything we see today. The continents were fused into a single supercontinent called Pangaea, creating vast uninterrupted landmasses where ecosystems stretched across thousands of kilometers. In this ancient world, Inostrancevia rose to the top of the food chain. What makes this predator extraordinary is not just its size or its strength, but the fact that for more than 10 million years, it faced no natural enemy capable of threatening it. No other predator evolved to compete with it at its level. No larger carnivore challenged its position. It existed as an apex predator in the purest sense, untouchable. But to understand how something like this could exist, we must first understand what it was. Inostrancevia belonged to a group of animals known as gorgonopsians. These were not reptiles in the traditional sense, nor were they true mammals. They were part of a transitional lineage called therapsids, sometimes referred to as mammal-like reptiles, although that term is outdated and misleading. These creatures represent an evolutionary bridge, animals that shared characteristics with both reptiles and the earliest mammals. Among all gorgonopsians, Inostrancevia was the largest and most powerful. Its skull alone tells the story. Massive, elongated, and built for force, the skull of Inostrancevia housed one of the most defining features of its kind: its enormous saber-like canine teeth. These teeth were long, curved, and sharp enough to pierce deep into flesh, likely delivering fatal wounds with a single bite. Unlike modern predators that rely on tearing or crushing, Inostrancevia teeth were specialized for precision killing, designed to puncture and disable prey quickly. But the teeth were only part of the equation. Its jaw structure allowed for a surprisingly wide gape, enabling it to open its mouth far enough to use those elongated canines effectively. This adaptation suggests a hunting style that involved targeting vulnerable areas: neck, throat, or soft tissue areas where a single bite could bring down large herbivores. And those herbivores were not small. In the late Permian, the land was dominated by creatures like dicynodonts and pariasaurs, large, often slow-moving herbivores that could weigh hundreds of kilograms. Some resembled oversized reptiles with thick bodies and protective armor. Others looked like barrel-bodied plant-eaters with beak-like mouths. These animals were the primary food source for predators like Inostrancevia. Inostrancevia was built to hunt them. Its body was muscular and powerful, likely capable of short bursts of speed rather than sustained chases. It may have relied on ambush tactics, waiting, observing, and striking with explosive force. Once it locked onto prey, escape would have been extremely difficult. There were no lions, no hyenas, no wolves, no competing carnivores at its level. For millions of years, Inostrancevia occupied the top of the ecological hierarchy without interruption. But this raises a critical question: how does a predator remain dominant for so long without being replaced? The answer lies in the stability of the world it lived in. During the late Permian, ecosystems were relatively stable compared to the rapid changes seen in later geological periods. Evolution was active, but not chaotic. Species evolved, adapted, and interacted over long periods of time. In such an environment, a highly specialized predator like Inostrancevia could thrive without immediate pressure from faster evolving competitors. Its success was not accidental, it was the result of evolutionary precision. However, stability does not last forever. And here is where the story takes a turn. At the end of the Permian period, Earth experienced the most devastating mass extinction event in its history, the Permian-Triassic extinction event, often referred to as the Great Dying. This catastrophic event wiped out approximately 90 to 95% of all marine species and around 70% of terrestrial vertebrate species. The cause of this extinction is linked to massive volcanic eruptions in what is now Siberia, known as the Siberian Traps. These eruptions released enormous quantities of carbon dioxide and other gases into the atmosphere, triggering extreme global warming. Temperatures rose dramatically. Oceans became acidic and oxygen depleted. Ecosystems collapsed. And then came the collapse that changed everything. For millions of years, Inostrancevia ruled without threat. But the world it depended on began to fall apart. Its prey began to disappear. The large herbivores it hunted could not survive the rapidly changing climate. Vegetation patterns shifted. Food sources diminished. Entire food chains collapsed. And without prey, even the most powerful predator cannot survive. Inostrancevia was not defeated by a stronger predator. It was defeated by the collapse of its entire world. This is the critical turning point in its story. Because for all its strength, size, and dominance, Inostrancevia was specialized. It was adapted to a specific type of environment and a specific type of prey. When those conditions vanished, it had no fallback strategy. Unlike more adaptable species, it could not quickly change its diet or behavior. Its evolutionary advantages became limitations in a rapidly changing world. As ecosystems broke down, Inostrancevia disappeared from the fossil record. Its extinction was not sudden in a dramatic sense, it was the result of a long, devastating collapse. A slow disappearance of the world it depended on. And then, silence. After Inostrancevia vanished, the Earth did not remain empty. New predators would eventually rise. The end of the Permian gave way to the Triassic period, where entirely new groups of animals emerged to fill the ecological void left behind. Archosaurs, ancestors of dinosaurs and crocodilians, began to diversify and dominate. Over millions of years, dinosaurs would become the new rulers of the land. But none of them would ever occupy the exact same evolutionary niche as Inostrancevia. Because that niche, the world of Gorgonopsian dominance, was gone forever. Today, the discovery of Inostrancevia gives scientists a rare glimpse into a forgotten chapter of Earth's history. Its fossils, found primarily in Russia and parts of Africa, reveal a predator that once stood at the pinnacle of its world. But more importantly, it challenges our assumptions about dominance in nature. We often think of apex predators as eternal rulers, unchallenged, unchanging, permanent. In reality, even the most powerful predators are temporary. Their dominance depends on fragile conditions, climate stability, prey availability, and ecological balance. Remove those conditions, and even the strongest collapses. And that leads to a question that remains unanswered. If a predator like Inostrancevia, one of the most dominant creatures of its time, could exist for millions of years and then vanish completely, what else has existed and disappeared without leaving a trace? What other rulers once walked the earth, only to be erased by time? And more importantly, what is dominating the world today that will not survive what comes next? Because in Earth's long history, no ruler has ever remained forever. Every apex predator eventually meets the same fate. And the next one may already be on its way. The story doesn't end here, it only gets darker from this point.